I'm sure you've seen these blankets. They're basically everywhere, looking all cozy and expensive. I actually might be back for this one, Target. So cozy. Somewhere to start. So, this is what I found. It's Loops and Threads brand Loopy Yarn. Basically, it's all pre-looped so you can knit even if you don't know how, and it is on clearance at Michael's right now. So grab some, or maybe not yet. Watch the video first. So this is what it looks like. You need to snip some of the loops to make a tail. Just be a little bit careful not to cut the yarn itself, but it is pretty easy to just snip the connections. Now, I've never used this before, so I'm going to make a little swatch. I feel like somewhere around 8 inches should be fine. So you just sort of bend the yarn back over itself and match up the loops starting at the bend. Pull the back loop through the front, and there, you made a stitch. Now you line up the next loops and do the same for the rest of the loops. Okay, now there's a row. So now you flip the yarn back the other way. Just move the whole ball to get it out of the way and do it again. Okay, I'm pulling the back loop through the front one. Try to make sure you line up all the loops. The loose ones, like the part on the yarn, can get sort of twisty and weird. It's hard to keep track of them all. And it can be easy to skip the one that was supposed to be next. It doesn't make your whole blanket fall apart or anything. Not like if you dropped a stitch in knitting. But it is annoying to have little loops popping out the back of your blanket when you're all finished. Ask me how I know. So it turns out you can tuck them in later, but it's kind of annoying. It's better to avoid it if you can. And with the magic of YouTube, we skip to the end of the row. So it puffed up to a little bit bigger than 8 inches wide. And if I counted the top loops, which for some reason I'm not, 3 rows is about 3 inches high. So about 1 inch a row. Speed round. Boy, I wish it really was this fast to do it. It did get faster as I went until toward the end when my fingers got tired. So, after a few rows, I got the hang of it. So I tried to figure out if I could make a cable. I really like the looks of those cables on the inspiration blankets. Okay, so not yet, obviously, and I need to figure out a purl stitch so the actual cable part sticks out more so you can really see it. Okay, so here is the stitch before the cable. Instead of going behind, the extra yarn is now in the front, and I push the front loop, the working yarn, through the yarn that you already have in the back. So that could work. Now the working yarn goes back again behind it. So that will make kind of an inset line and the cable will pop out. Now these 2 stitches here are going to be the cable. Skip the first stitch, we'll get back to that in a second. Pull the next working loop through the second loop. Cool. Now pull the other stitch over that we set aside to the left and pull the next working loop through. There it is. Now on the other side of the cable, just like before, you bring the working yarn to the front and stick it back through. That gives us another purl stitch. And that will give you a pretty simple cable. Then I'm just back to normal on the rest of the stitches. So on the next row, when you go from left to right, I'm just pulling the loops through normally. So normally from left to right, and then I'll do the cables on the other way. But feel free to experiment and see what you like the best. Now we'll magically gloss over a bunch more rows. All right, so here is the end of the swatch. You can kind of see where a few rows of the cables would look like. Then I added yet another row, I don't know why, but now I can show you how to finish the end. Start over here on the end where your yarn is not. In this case, we're working from left to right, but it works whichever way. Take the loop on the right and push it through the one on the left. Now instead of 2 loops, you have 1. Next, you do the same across the rest of the row. So keep putting the right hand loop through the left over and over again until you are left with just 1 loop on the right hand side. Great. Now all you have to do is pull the extra yarn through. You'll snip a few loops and cut the rest off to make sort of a tail. And then you'd stick the free end of the yarn through the last loop and tie a knot. But this is just a sample, so I'm not cutting anything. And now I have to take it all apart. Cool. I'm going to make mine sort of lap blanket sized, but it could go either way. It's about 36 inches across, and then I'll just keep going until I run out of yarn, or 48 inches, or whichever comes first. I do really wish that it was this fast. What is this? That's not helpful. So I cut this section out, leaving a little bit of extra ends, and then tied it back together, and more ends to weave in later. Awesome. I also decided to do stripes since I didn't have enough white for a whole blanket. But here's how you switch to a new skein of whatever color. I'm leaving a tail on the blue and snipping some loops to make a tail of the white. It is best if you can switch at the end of a row so you can weave the ends into the side when you're done. Now you just tie the 2 yarn ends together right at the edge. That's it. Not too hard. And you continue looping just like before. Woohoo! Last row! Now you can snip the yarn and make a tail at that end. And then finish up this end, starting at the opposite edge and pulling all the loops through. Pull the yarn end through the last loop and tie a knot. There you have it, it's a blanket! Okay, so it's not quite as chunky and lovely as the ones in the stores, but it is a blanket that you can make without knowing how to actually knit. To be fair, it might be quicker to learn how to knit and actually knit it, but it really is cozy and warm and super soft.